Oh, good morning. And this is your Sensei Al Bob, and I'm coming to you from the station, the studios of Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob. And this program is strictly one of laugh and giggles, entertainment, right? So, wherever you are, come on down and just enjoy it. Good morning. Hey, Twitchy. So how you doing, Twitch? What's shaking your tree? Oh, I'm going to talk about free will today. Doing dishes. Okay, that's good. And you know what this whole little universe is about the conflict of slavery versus free will. Okay, that's a good thing. John Boy, I have some friends from the channel coming to visit, and I broached the subject of them staying here. And first, anyway, so he spent a whole bunch of time getting ready, and I didn't broach it with them. And when I did, they had already prepared to do something else. So, that's free will. They want to do, you know, be where they want to be. And it's not me to tell them they can or can't. They got free will. They got their own will, right? And and I wouldn't, go about doing that. I wouldn't, you know, do that, right? And I only broached the subject with John, and then he put it in his own context, and now it's. But it'll be nice, They're going to come and visit our quaint little city and see the. I'll take them around as only I can, as the tour guide, of showing them stuff that most tourists don't see, and we'll have a good old time. And then they'll go home and they'll enjoy, and maybe they'll come back, and then they can, because it's still kind of winter. I mean, we just had some snow. Our road is you know, this house, just like the deep green, is. Winter is its hardest month. In the 15 years I own this place, I used to go to Florida all the time, or go out on a gig. But free will is today's subject, right? So, most of us think we actually decide what we're going to do, right? But we are manipulated. We're manipulated by so many things, and part of it is the the framework that we look at things, and part of the framework is words, right? Everything we get, the making of meaning of culture, right? And what is culture? You know, can I have a little feedback here from you too? What do you think culture is? Well, within the constructs of the banking world, which is kind of where our culture has been, for the last culture, right? Culture has been, first, we were taught the divine right of kings. Emperors and kings were put there by God. So don't question them because God put them there, right? And then religions became codified within books and words. And you can't question those books because they're divine. And, then there was governments, and boo, 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 boo. you know, divine right. Slavery was told us that that was, hey, you can't question slavery. There's free people and slaves, and those slaves are always we're gonna always own you, right? And now we are ruled by debt, central banking, and that started back in the days of Babylonian banksters. That's the money magic. Where like look at our dollar, right? What is it? It's a piece of paper. Is it backed by anything? No. 1971, Richard Nixon took our dollar off the gold, off being backed by anything. So that's 71. So since 1971, countries have been giving us their resources, their products, and their intellectual properties for just ink and paper, right? That's what a central bank does. And every time, like Lincoln during the Civil War, what the Civil War wasn't about slavery, it was about a means of production. And it was about France and England wanting to take back the United States. And they bankrolled the South and also somewhat of the North. But they wanted those, what better way to get a country to fall apart than to have it beat itself up from the inside out. And that's kind of what's going on right here, right now, right? So look for, someone wanting to take us over. Now we weren't, the interesting thing is we've already been taken over by the central banks. When the Federal Reserve to law, it was written on Jekyll Island by the millionaires and their lawyers, and then they bought the legislature and they passed it at the middle of the night on Christmas when they just had a quorum, right? And the Senate didn't vote for it, right? And Woodrow Wilson signed it because he was a bought and sold kind of guy. And that's where we are now, right? So I continue to talk about we need to develop an alternative aesthetic. So we need to have a different aesthetic, a different concept of what culture is. And from my experience as a scholar, the closest thing to a true culture is culture based on the first peoples. Gobstopper, yep. And that's why we had the revolution, is because King George wanted us to use his English banknotes that were banked by the Rothschilds, just like the Federal Reserve. Federal Reserve it's a privately owned stock held corporation, has nothing to do with the federal government. Federal Express has more to do with the federal government than the Federal Reserve. And that's because, they basically, all those dollars that you have in your pocket are backed by debt. And why did Nixon start the EPA, right? And all these environmental organs of the federal government. Why? Because he took our dollar off the gold standard, and our dollar was about to collapse because all the people who owned our treasury notes wanted to, like France, they had, their banks were full of U.S. treasury notes, and they had been sending us wine and cheese and other resources, and all they got was treasury notes. So part of the law, there was this thing called the Breckinridge thing where just before World War II, because what happened was Germany was the most depleted, bankrupt country in World War One, and Germany didn't have a stick to fight. Basically, England attacked Germany because Germany was doing better economically because they had a gold based, wasn't using a central bank. had a government gold-based currency, and that's why they snapped back from. You think we had a bad depression? Germany had a severe depression, and Adolf said, "Nope, sorry, we're not going to have a central bank. We're going to have a government bank backed by resources," which they did, and they just took off like a rocket ship, and they became, in a scant 6 years, the mighty industrial might. Anyway, so that's kind of where we are now, because we are so bankrupt. Because why did we invade all these countries? Why did we invade Iraq? Had nothing to do with 9/11. Because Saddam wanted no longer to take treasury notes for his oil. Neither did Mr. Gaddafi. Every government, and neither did the Syrian guys. They wanted the golden dinar or the euro to be the default, petroleum monetary, not the U.S. dollar, right? And once the American dollar is no longer the petroleum dollar, bingo. Why are we about to go into Venezuela? There's no reason, you know. And there's a guy named General Sniley Butler, maybe, but he was a most decorated Marine general of World War One, and in the Depression, when FDR was doing the New Deal, the old fuddy-duddy bankers just wanted if you ever go into the GE building or the RCA building or the Rockefeller Center and look at the light fixtures, if they're still up there, they represent the fascist symbol, meaning a hatchet surrounded by a thicket of wheat, right? And all the light fixtures were that, because Rockefeller was a fascist, and he wanted to, have a, get rid of FDR and bring in a fascist military, thing. And that's where we are now in America. We're in a military fascist corporate state. And that's what fascism is. That would be interesting. I would, that would be interesting, you know. I mean, that's kind of what happened to JFK. I mean, he was a mofo for them. His daddy was a gangster. He was in on it all the way. With a platinum spoon in his mouth. But after getting run over by his PT boat getting run over by a Japanese destroyer in the middle of the night while he was on a booty run, and he came back and kind of got patched up, and then he kind of, at the end of the war, he hung out with his daddy, made him one of Forrest Storrell's assistants to see what was going on in the world and what the new world order was going to be. He was down, he was part of Majestic. He saw the flying saucer. He saw everything that what happened, and so he became congressman, senator. He was on that track. He married the right woman. He was screwing every broad he could, and then, his body started to fall apart. So he got a doctor called Dr. Feelgood, and basically he said, it's like me. You might die tomorrow. You might live another 30, 40 years, right? Me, I might die tomorrow, might live another 20 years. So he decided that he was going to have a real good time. So he was really doubling down, and his doctor was giving him every drug to feel good, not just to, because there was really not much they could do with what was wrong with him. Just like there's not much that can be done with what's wrong with me. And so, and he knew everything, right? So he goes, congressman, senator, and you look at his senatorial thing, he was not the nicest of guys. But right around when he starts running for president, he basically starts doing psychotropics and starts having sex with Marilyn Monroe. And, his buddy is Frank Sinatra, and he's having sex with all these Hollywood girls, having the Hollywood experience, you know. So when he becomes president, he really doubles down on everything, and he realizes, you know, I'm going to die either by what's wrong with me, or they're just going to. I might as well go for the gusto. So what does he do? He again says, okay, forget this central bank. The Treasury is going to start printing our money, and he, you know, signs an executive order, you know, 0 1 1 1 1 1 1 0 or whatever. But he does that, right? Executive order. Then, kind of, he knows the story of what's going on with the breakaway civilization, and you know, Hail Hydra, and that Operation Paperclip brought all the Nazis into our government and made the CIA and the NSA and the, you know, all of those alphabet things that rule us, you know, and they were also, you know, married to the mob through the central bank, and he was going to break that. You know, he was going to, you know, release the public because we were chained. Well, it's a start. No, I'm agree. You know, the great exposer JFK, right? And now the interesting thing, you know, so the powers that shouldn't be, the hidden hand, you know, they've been wanting to take out three-quarters of the human race. And again, go read, go see Chris Carter's recent X Files a year or two ago called "The Special Event," and they're about I don't know, somewhere between 8 and 10 shows that he did, and now another one of the cadre is visiting, and and they are folk who really contact me on you know, Gmail rather than the YouTube. They don't really they're not part of the chorus, so they're a little more private and quiet. So anyway, we are again at this window of opportunity and trying to, you know, and if we had people out in the streets with pitchforks and you know, torches. I mean, see how that works. You know, see how the Arab Spring worked. You get used. You know, every group that does this. You know, the Me Too group, the girls in the pink hats. You know, they are being used. You know, black like me, they're being used. Every group is being used, and whatever group comes together in solidarity and actually does positive, motivative political action, like the union groups and the socialist group and the communist group, because those weren't like Russian socialists and communists, you know, no, you know, and the unionist group were not, you know, they were the workers together, but then everyone got bought out, played against each other, and see, the question is, will we get distracted, or will we live our lives, you know? Will we have expectations that are being brought to us, you know, by the media, by consumption, you know, or are we going to really, you know, and the only way you can, anyway, so the only way this can really work is in every day and every way that we take the peace of the earth by bringing peace to the earth by co-creating with love, you know, and not being stuck, you know, to an illusion of an incident, a situation, a belief. Like, you know, everyone believes that the only thing, our money, oh, we have the Federal Reserve, that's the only way they print our money. Oh, that's the only, no, you know, JFK had the Treasury printed, you know, Lincoln had the Treasury print their money, you know. Andrew Jackson had the Treasury print our money, right? We haven't always had a central bank. And our revolution was, the taxation without representation was, wanting to force the public into paying, you know, because every dollar that's in your pocket, you only own a penny. The 99 cents is debt. And that's what King George wanted to foster on us. Right? That was the tax. Not tea. Nobody drank tea except, you know, effete Anglophiles. Yep, it's a sham. And the only way we can change that sham is what we do in our everyday. How we treat our cadre, how we treat all our relations, right? Not with anger and fear, you know? Meaning, I don't get angry, I don't get fearful, I don't jump up and down and scream. I may, you know, raise my voice to my outside voice, but I don't get angry. I don't fight, you know? I discuss, you know? And I try to understand, that's one of the issues of we're stuck into words. Everyone believes, you write a contract, you know, no, it's what's in your heart. From my experience, you know, you know, it's what's in our heart that's important, not the words we say. It's the actions we do. Good thoughts bring good words, bring good actions, good outcomes. If your thoughts are messed up and stuck in the squirrel cage of your Rolodex of your mind, and all you can think is about, oh, why can't this happen? Oh, I want this. Oh, I did that. I've been doing this. Oh my, no, that's not going to get you too far. But if we have two ears and one mouth. So if we listen more to what people want, and not press on, meaning when I was a negotiator for the desperate lawyers, that's what I did. I listened, way better than anybody else to really suss out what people wanted and needed, not within the context of the contract or the this or the that. No, what was inside them. And once I kind of unpackaged what was inside of everyone who needed to sign that contract and then made it obvious to everyone what everyone needed and then negotiated by having everyone listen to the other person. That's like using the talking feather. That's what it was. And so why can't your abs be able to talk? Yep. Buddy, if anyone's abs could talk, I would say it was yours. The school up here, again, the beauty of this school up here is the land it's on because it doesn't speak. You know, it has a heart that's truly amazing. You know, and the school, you know, George, who's this is George's school. Inga just went along for the ride, and she did her little inputs here and there, but it's pretty much George's ego. But he was, you know, persuaded or manifested or moved by the heart of the hill. And that's why this building is so amazing, right? It's not who owns it. I mean, I paid the taxes on it for 15 years, but I never said, oh, this is mine. This is always the hill, right? And talking about paranormal, this place is more paranormal, but that juice has to be manifested by love's co-creation. Otherwise, it just becomes the boogeyman, right? And then the boogeyman gets tired, you know? It's like, why do bullies pick on certain people and not others, right? When I was a little peanut as a kid, bullies tried to bully me, but I was so, in my own private Idaho of electricity and physics and, watching the electrons and neutrons and protons of the atoms spinning around in my mind, in my soul, no matter what they said, didn't affect me, went right over my head. So, after a while, they just went on to the next person, right? And that's part of, you see that scene out of Star Wars where Obi-Wan, these aren't the droids you're looking for. Move on. It's like that. But everyone's so stuck in what they're stuck in. No, not everyone is stuck 100%. Hey there, Sarah. And that's because I'm only a moron 20% of the time. And what's so good about the course here is that you folks are more than 60% not a moron. And I'd have to see you eye to eye to cut that, but you're more, I would even go far as to say 70% of you, no, 70% of the time, all of the chorus is awake, especially when you're, online being the chorus, you're awake, you know. And that's why we don't really get bothered by the trollish folk because they get on and we don't react to them. It's like me as a peanut, just goes over our heads. Or we ask them pointed questions like, who are you? How are you feeling? What's your problem? And instead of like screaming at them or trying to, wrench them out of existence. No, not so much. You know, because they do a really good job of taking care of themselves because of the words they use, right? They are just really stupid because they don't even know what they mean. They don't look at the etymology. They go to Webster's dictionary, but that's not etymology. On ley lines, I often see maps outlining their location. Is there an actual locations these things flow, or is it based on energy flows? Well, exactly, amente. They flow, and it's like up here. So there's no one up here to prime the pump. So this whole hill is dying. All the trees, like you see out there, all those trees have all kinds of fungus on them. They're all dying because the energy that was super duper here when Inga was here, when the Black Cherokee were here, when I was here, that was like, I used to go up there every day on the hill and pray, and boy, did the hill love that, right? And yes, energy transfers. Yep, yep. And they flow, and everything flows underground. The roots flow, the fungi flow, the flora and fauna flow, the water flows. And this place is beautiful all the time. Even when it snows and we get stuck up here, it's still beautiful. I mean, I showed you the other day I tried to show you anyway, out out there. And and John is right. Pretty much, for the 15 years I owned this place, I had a nice cash flow, good credit rating, all the above. And I had, gigs, clients up and down the eastern seaboard, from about DC to Miami was my travel pattern. And I would leave here. I wired and plumbed this place so I could turn the circuit breaker for the well off, open one valve at the lowest point, and open all the sink up and empty out the toilets and put, dry them out and lock the place up and walk away. And this house would be fine. No electricity on, no water in the pipes. I would come back mid-April, and it would be great. So I would stay here from mid-April till the 10th of December, and then I would, go on down to Florida way. And I'd first stop off at Jekyll Island, and I would celebrate Christmas. I'd get there. I would see friends between. I had some friends in Charlotte, and I had some friends in Blacksburg, and I had some friends along before '95. There was a road. It was like the Lee Highway, and that's 11. And there was another one for black folk called 27. And it kind of goes from around here all the way down to Florida, right? And it goes through that part of North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, then Florida. That was 200 square mile this way and about 900 miles this way. That was the Black neck of the woods, and that's where a lot of the old slave farms were, and then they became black farms and black communities, and they were quite affluent, and that was one of the things of Jim Crow. It isolated black folk, so it concentrated their economy in one place. So by 1961, no, by 1961, African Americans were the seventh largest economy in the world. And see, they were one of the freest because they were not part of the white consumer society. They grew their own food. I did a study, in the early 68, where the healthiest people in the United States were black tenement farmers because they had no money, they couldn't buy anything, and they grew their own food. They were eating organic, right? What John wants to eat. I mean, they were really eating organic because there was nothing coming out of the sky. There was no chemtrails. They didn't have money to buy fertilizers or pesticides, so they rotated their crops. They used, did the thing of where they turned their garbage into food for the earth. They understood how to make healthy earth, where basically modern industrial farming kills the earth first and then puts GMOs in and gives chemicals to make it grow. And that's why the food, I mean, you could wash it all day. And that's why you can, if you grow your food, yeah, the seeds could be non-GMO. You cannot use fertilizer. You could not use, and you could buy them, from the co-op and in the organic world, and you would still be eating the same crap as the supermarket. So instead of, paying 80% more for the same crap, just go to the supermarket and buy vegetables and clean them off as well as you can and skin them and do all the rest. And then energetically, shamanically, pump them up, and then you'll have healthy food. And that's the kind of food I make for John Birmingham every day, and I have food ready for him to eat. And right now I have a really nice cream of carrot and spinach and a few other vegetables that I creamed, and it's very yummy, and very good for you. But John thinks it's poison. Uh, yep, nano self-assembling particulate. Yep, and that's we're breathing it in. It's all around us. So the only way we can truly, how am I staying alive, right? The last 7 years, right? Because I meditate 5 to 10 times a day. But, I've had a garden, unless you have a greenhouse, gardening is useless. And it's kind of hard to garden here on the side of a mountain. So that's why, when I gardened, I helped start gardens all around the city of Roanoke. And that's what brought the kind of co-op organic food, because what we were doing. And that's also what brought the field to plate movement here, right? Because we not only did we garden, but we had our own restaurant, and you know, again, the thing that's most important, and up here at the school, it's pretty tough because, like I said, we're on the side of a cliff, 45 degrees. The whole thing is like that, right? So you can't have a garden on that. If we built a greenhouse, different, then we'd have a level thing. We could build our own earth, and we would protect the environment with glass. So the crap from the sky and the water, we could control our water. We could do all of that, but don't think so. Well, John, hey, that sounds like a great idea. You know, I tried it, doesn't work. You know, so yep. Good luck, John. Go for it. You would do much better to grow food in window boxes. Make it's called raised beds. To become have enough money to buy my own organic groceries or eat your regular stuff here. Yep. Well, Inga had a garden, but it was down near her house where they have flatter ground. And like I said, John, all of the earth here has changed greatly. You know, in the last 20 years, the earth is kind of dead. And window boxes, I've grown a lot of food. And we can harvest sprouts. All you need is buckets. Seeds are cheap. Yep. But John, just because a tree has green leaves doesn't mean it's healthy, right? The tree can actually be dead and still have leaves. It's a chemical process of photosynthesis. Now, the life of a tree is a totally different thing because it depends on the flora and fauna and the fungi in the earth. There's this great link that is in a forest, and ours is pretty much dead. Meaning, when I used to walk up and down that hill every day for 2 or 3 times, and I had all these campsites, and I had my students, in those campsites. There was a thing called loam, right? And it doesn't exist. It was the dirt breathing, and it doesn't do that no more. That's true, John, as far as you can see. No, John, I never owned the house. The house was never mine. I only paid the taxes. I didn't own it. The hill was itself the hill. It wasn't mine, right? Well, John, one thing here is I don't believe anything. I only have faith in love's co creation. So, don't believe, you know. Well, this is a blessed spot, and when you have the kind of energetics that have coursed through here for thousands of years, it has a residual, right? So that residual is still going on here, and it will go on here for a long time. So You're lucky to be here, John. I mean, appreciate it. Walk up in that hill, sit on the ground, talk to the plants, you know, and they'll talk back to you. They talk back to me all the time. And there used to be unbelievable amount of birds here. There are no more birds here. There used to be frogs and box turtles and crickets and every kind of all our relations, but not so much. Trees are still here. But in that ice storm, John, we lost a lot of trees. Why did they all fall down? You know, because the trees were not healthy. Yes, there'll be leaves on the trees. But every morning I used to wake up, and soon as like 5:30, the whole area was just woodpeckers and blue jays and every kind of bird because Engel used to feed them all. This was like a bird reserve. And we also had hummingbirds. That's because the north side of the school was covered in these vines called bell vines. And the hummingbirds would come and float and take the, nectar out of those things. But, John, you got rid of all of those. You cut them down off the ground. I mean, I kind of liked that the whole backside of the school was, one gigantic green thing. But you had a different aesthetic. You own the place. You can do whatever you want with it. But those hummingbirds are gone. You know, and there used to be a ton of honeybees and all kinds of bees, and they're all gone. Anyway, so yes, it's a beautiful place. The energy is still great. But it is better when you co-create. When you go out there. I used to. We have a nice fire pit, right? And John just kind of the access to it. All the limbs, just put them right there, right? So I can't, go down there and pray. Yes, Sarah, the five of you, tell John what it's like to communicate with nature because he doesn't seem to listen to me. So I'll be quiet. You tell John. Anyway, when it becomes spring, well, you don't have to wait till spring. You can go commune with nature like I do. And you can do it almost any place. Meaning, when I'm downtown, I go. That's why we built all those gardens in all over 9 gardens all over the city. And then it became a big institution, blah, 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 grants, da, 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 blue, 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 and all the powers that be wanted to be on the board. And the people who started it, me, I didn't quite start it, there were other people. I was just their, Grandpa Smurf and gave them a little advice and, ear to listen and a little bit of, like I said, advice. But and see, that's Roanoke. Roanoke's a very interesting city because things kind of just blossom and or go, and you think it's going to be like we had a music renaissance here maybe 8, 9, 10 years ago, and I thought it was going to be of years or a number of music clubs, and then it died. Same thing with the gardening scene. It died. You know, and John, we all love you. No one's attacking you. You know, it's not about you, John. You know, it really isn't. It's not about any of us. You know, it's about love's co-creation. It's not about you, John. It's not about me. You know, it's not about any of us. You know, yeah. Look at that wall. So I have, my when I'm asleep because I'm kind of, in this little bed with, stuck up against the wall. I expectorate. My lungs just kind of, and that's what that is, right? And to me that looks like modern art. But you know, so we put some paint over it. It's not a big deal. Please don't show that wall. Okay, I won't show that wall. I'll just show the ceiling. How about that? And see, right, to make John happy, I do whatever he asks. John, I love you, buddy. You're my friend. You know, I don't really self-centered. Not really. You know, I realized a long time ago that's a waste of time. Yeah, Fish, I know exactly what you're talking about. My first wife used to get really, really upset with me because I would never fight. I would never argue with her. I would just logically go through the situation and try to get the best outcome. The three rules. And a lot of people, all they want to do is fight. They want to be right. There is no right or wrong. There is. I don't believe in anything. It's kind of hard to fight with me if I don't believe in anything. Oh, John, don't feel awkward. We love you. We love you, John. Oh, yes, we do. We love you, John, because you're so true. We love you, John. Don't be blue. Oh, John, we love you. So, um, oh, don't be out of here, John. The whole thing is, there was a guy named Leconte. There's Freud, Leconte, and the guy who's the collective unconscious guy. Of the 19th century, early 20th century, they were at least the most advertised psychologists. Freud, it's all about sex. Carl Jung, it's all about the collective unconscious. And Leconte, what Leconte said was, whenever anyone says, you know what, you're selfish, you're mean, you're cruel, you're this, you're that, they're talking about themselves. And so that's kind of, when I saw myself doing that, and I kind of took it apart. And that's kind of the whole thing that I'm talking about culture. John did us a great favor here because he really was a great, again, canary in the coal mine example of what this culture is, and that we need to have a new one, right? Yes, yes. and that's why I keep saying that we're a non-wrench channel here. Everyone can voice their opinion, and yes, I a number of my clients would bring it up to my point of view that Al, we all love you, but you are an acquired taste because I'm always straight up what it is. 80% awake, 20% I'm a moron. And even when I'm a moron, I'm trying to be awake, right? It's not a binary problem. It's not an either or, because we all live in love's co-creation. When we can step into that, it is what it is. And otherwise, this illusionary world, which everyone kind of is navigating the best they can in their avatar, you know. But every 900 years or so, the powers that shouldn't be, the hidden hand, the sock puppets, try to basically wipe out the majority, through a social, economic, political, or environmental catastrophe. You know? And usually, just before that occurs, there's a great opportunity to step up to our conscious free will. Yes. And that was Inga. She was the bird watcher's bird watcher. Mm-mm. Mm. Yes, exactly. You make it a digital or three or more poll, and all our voices are heard, and instead of being in competition with each other, they show the paradoxes of all our lives. Yeah. Oh, just get on your phone. That's Almartino at Roanoke, Virginia. And then you Gmail me at the Dude Awake 42 Gmail, the tracking number, and that's how it goes. You don't need any more than my name, and then I show up there with the tracking number and my ID, and it's always good. So, and everything you guys have sent me, I have to say thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, because it always comes right on time, right in the nick of time, right when I need that. Somebody did that, sent me $50. I had a flat tire. It was like amazing. I was driving down this road and there was a spike, because I can't see that. There was a spike in the road. I ran over it. I heard it go thwump. And there was this little tag, metal tag, and what I could hear it going thwump, thwump, thwump. And my car has a light that shows if you're getting a flat. Well, something was wrong. And so I was able to drive 12 miles from where this thing got my tire to the Firestone guys, where I bought that tire from. And I paid the extra $9 for insurance. And so so that tire cost $120, right? Well, somebody sent me, you know, $50. And because I took it to that Firestone or not somebody else, I still had X amount of prorated miles on that tire. And so it cost me exactly the money I got from Western Union about 20 minutes before I ran on that thing. And what was that? A lesson of faith, because I had no other money. And that was faith, right? It was, the universe showing, hey, we got your back. We always got your back. And we are pleased that you are doing the life we wanted you to do right now. You are doing what we wanted you to do. Instead of pissing and moaning and whining and etc. you are doing what we wanted you to do, and you're making us happy by making others happy. We got your back. Uh, uh, hey there, Portal. Yep. And a little thanks for all of us being who we are. So say we all. Do, 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 do. Anyway, spring is almost here. We'll have a few more cold days, and then things will get a little easier. Right? And I've just spent 2.5 weeks just getting a pair of orthopedic shoes, but the silver lining of that, I had to go see about 20 different doctors and get them to sign about 40 different forms, right? And the shoes I could, get at Walmart's for 19 bucks. It's it's way. Um, the silver lining to that was so I had to go through, blood tests and this just to get a pair of shoes, right? All of this stuff. And I basically it was great because I hadn't really had them lift up the hood and look at me. And there's always something, this bed is, maybe, let's see, that, you know, okay, I'm back. I got knocked off there. Oh, anybody left? Can you hear me now? Yep, yep. Okay, good. Well, I'm back. Maybe the rest of the chorus will come back. So, you know, whatever. Meaning, anger can only affect you if you reflect that anger. Anger cannot affect you if you reflect love. Good. We're back. Yep. Kind of got knocked off there. Every time we get into an interesting conversation, someone seems to have to knock us, but that's a good thing. And that it kind of, it's like back in the day, I was at this one university that had a terrible power. And they were overusing their power for things they shouldn't be using it for. So we'd have a power failure at the whole university at least once a week, if not once a day. So if you were working on your computer, because I had no computer, but I was at a school, so I was at, I had a research core, like a little nook, and I had a computer there. I could access anything. That's why I loved it, and it was nice. It was kind of very quiet, and no one went down my alley, so most people didn't even know where I was. So that's why I liked it. That's why I didn't come. I need my own office. No, it was very nice with a nook. Anyway, I used to have to save, save everything, save. Like every 3 minutes, I'd have to save. But sometimes I get into a jag of writing. I'd be writing, power would go up, and I would lose a page or two, right? But it would still be up here and in here, and so I would basically have to rewrite it again. And the second draft was always better than that first one, and it was coming from my whole consciousness, right? Instead of just the abstract little parts of me that was writing the initial thing. So, challenges are, if we didn't have challenge, that's why in the yin yang symbol, right? The circle, the event horizon, the little squirrely thing, that's the path we're on. One side is black, one side is white. Inside the white side, there's a black dot. Inside the white thing, there's a black dot. And what are those dots but chaos? And we need chaos every now and then to keep us. And that's why Donnie Chump is so good. I mean, the powers that shouldn't be put him in power thinking that they could control him. Forget about it. He's beyond a moron. He is like something else. And this is good because he is the living embodiment of the unexpected consequence. And so he is like bringing everyone up short. I mean, he's basically, Donnie is no more corrupt than any other politician. He is no more corrupt. He is the perfect example, the canary in the coal mine of the control mechanism. So, and then you have Mike Pence as a second in command. Whoa, baby! And then you got, the usual suspects as his cabinet. I mean, we are just being shown what has been going on for the last 16,000 years in real time, right in front of us on our screens. Now it's being brought to us by Procter and Gamble and Ford Auto Company and et al. And it's being purveyed through things like MSNBC and Fox and CNN, and they're all the same thing. And so it's waking people up to a point where but again, John's a good example. Well, just like he said, I'm going to sign off now because we were talking in reality to John. He didn't want to hear that. It wasn't just coming from me. Right? When I said, "Okay, I'm not going to say anything," you guys talk to John, and that's when he like sing. And yes, again, I am a you know, you have to get used to me. You know, I'm a what did I say? One of my clients said, "You're an acquired taste." That's what it is. I'm an acquired taste. And most times, when I first meet people, I just listen, and listen, and listen, and then I say a few things that like brings them up short, like whoa, right? Then they listen. I think that's what Buddy is. He is the Hulk on every aspect, intellectually, spiritually, muscularly, you know, all without drugs. Anyway, so I shall paint ineptitude. Yeah, and that's really what it is. Injustice is ineptitude. It's like the level of unbelievable stupidity is right. But people are becoming aware. They're becoming awake. It's not that they're stupid. It's that they're unconscious. Apart from all the coke. Now, is that old coke or new coke? Black coke or red coke? I could never do coke. That's why rock and roll producers love my ass because I didn't drink and I didn't do drugs. So when they were out in the limousine and the chauffeur got drunk, I could drive the car. And when I was in the studio, I was the only guy who was like not coked out of his mind that, could make sure the buttons were all pushed correctly. So even after 7 hours of recording, it would go down on tape. Cherry Coke, okay, so I knew it. I knew it was vanilla Coke. Probably is any soda in a can is like drinking windshield wiper fluid. Now, if you mix it yourself, I mean, there's a soda fountain around here that's quite the bomb. And that is the real thing, buddy, right there. I am not a slave to drugs. Drugs aren't bad. It's being the slave. And money's not bad. It's being the slave. Having that car or that nice suit or any of that stuff, it's being the slave, right? According to lots of people, I'm still in childhood at 24. Of course you are. When you're around old farts like me, 24, you got to be kidding me. But I can remember being 24, what I knew and how I felt and how people related to me. So I can relate to you, Fish, and know that, you know, you're just 24. You're not a child. You know, I took care of lots of people in my life, and some of the most mature were children. 24 rules. It's a sacred number. Give me a Tartarus. Well, Fish, how you deal with that one about being, feeling so blind, being young? You slow down, right? And you just get, I mean, when I was a great electrician at 9, really amazing one at 11, and everybody wanted me once I got past 15. So that went to my head, and, you know, I would, yes, I worked for Grandpa Stoll and I worked for real estate guys, but I also did things on the side. And, I would always take care of it, but not on the time constructs of people that wanted me there then, not when it. Anyway, so my nickname was anytime. I mean, I would show up at any time. I remember coming to a meeting for a big project where I was like central, and I showed up and there was nobody there. And I went to the guy who was the boss and said, "So why isn't anybody here?" He goes, "Al." I said, "I'm here Thursday, 4 o'clock." He said, "Al, I'm all right on time." "Al, what?" "That was last week." Anytime. So I had an aunt who was like punctual, like you couldn't believe, man. Whenever we went someplace, we would get there 15 minutes early and walk around. So we would walk through the door just right on time. And she used to call it perfect timing. So by the time I hit 25 ish, when I had a lot of response, I was doing a lot of stuff. And before then, I would just show up whenever I wanted to show up because they needed me more than I needed them. And that annoyed a lot of people. But they had to put up with it because they needed me more than I needed them. But when I showed up on time, I got the nickname of perfect timing. And that's when I realized I would just show up just at the right time, Fish. And it would be where I could see everything. Everything would slow down. It's like those movies with the Flash in it. He's like walking through the room and everyone's like looking like they're still, and they could push their head sideways and you know tweak their nose and do all that kind of stuff. And that's the bottom line. Is timing, not how old you are. Timing. Ooh, let's go back a ways. So, buddy, are you a Cancer? Is that your astrological sign? What sign are you? Leo, Cancer, what are you? Yes, better than Mr. Gone. This is true, and that's why I was still right. Yep, exactly. So then I have to slow down more, but then I become emotionally charged, and it's hard for me to keep going, especially when my brain wants to run. Well, running is good, but just do it at the right time. I can barely walk, but I can still run. I'm like Yoda. He's always hobbling around with a cane, and then when he has to fight the emperor, he's like flying through the air. That's what you need to emulate, Fish. Boo. That's it. That's what the cadre. That is our main thing. Always to improve, move forward. Step up to our conscious free will, right? Not use our free will as a drug. Woot! We all here in this chat have young energy. Boop, 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 boop. Well, that's the one person, fish, you shouldn't aggravate is your husband, right? Yep, you're a Cancer. Cancer is an amazing sign. It is total. It is the most psychic sign in the zodiac, right? Now, it is a challenging sign for men because men can. I have a Cancer moon, so Aquarius, Cancer moon. I think what's my other sign is, I think in Scorpio. Um, and I was using it as that too. Yep, Cancer represents, that's for sure. But I had a wife, my first wife was a triple Cancer. She was truly amazing. But she let her intuition, she didn't recognize her intuition. She wouldn't represent her intuition, so she let it oppress her, right? Until I kept saying, "Baby, no, you're great." That's why we got married because she was great. Cancer, Aquarius, interesting, right? Metal dog. Are you K9, buddy? Are you K9? I love K9 from Doctor Who. Every time I have a dog, I visualize them as K9. Smarter than me, you know. Yeah, triple Cancer. But once, for 8 years, we were like one mind, you know. Because once she realized that, wow, this guy, A, he will take all of my fears and turn them into strengths. He will, support everything in a positive way like no one else other than my father has. Because her father was an Aquarian too. I like English bulldogs, but you gotta. As soon as they pop out of mom, you gotta stick them in your pocket, and they have to so identify with you. Otherwise, they're pretty stubborn. But once as long as every dog wants you to be the alpha dog, and once you're that, they're happy. You know. So I had the English bulldog, and he was a great dog, and I had him in Ireland. And again, I found him in a trash can. you know, just in a trash can. And somebody, their dog had puppies, and they just kind of popped the dogs in the garbage. And that one was alive. And I stuck him in my pocket, took him home, I nursed him, and I went into the store and got baby formula already mixed, and put it in a baby bottle, gave it to him, and kept him in my pocket. I had one of these big German army shirts, and kept him in there. And within 3 or 4 weeks, he was the best. He was home. He was house broke. Didn't poop in the house, didn't chew up anything, as long as he could be in my pocket. And I'd go with into the library. I'd cover him up, in class, and he'd be quiet. And I just like, hey, how you doing, buddy? How you doing? And then he got older and older. And then then I went up to, the old crones, and she loved him, and I loved him. And buddy, guess what I named that dog? I named him Buddy. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it was an oh thing. And she had the crone had that dog, and I went back to see her three more times over a 12, 15 year period, and he was still there, and he was like still a young dog, meaning he was not hobbling around. Those bulldogs, they have things in them that they don't last too long, but she took good care of him, that's for sure. Yeah, that is a problem. If you're allergic to a dog, they got things in them that you can really. Luckily, I told you the story about how I was allergic to everything, and then I went to a guy who worked on allergies, and he stuck. His wife was a breeder of dogs and horses, and I stayed with them for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and they had me sleep in with the horses and the dogs, amongst the straw and everything else. And that right there did more to cure me of every allergy I ever had. Well, Fish, let's see. Here's Hobie. I'm looking for the lady crone, the height of Colorado. Thanks. Okay. Well, everyone on the chat, let us all visualize Fish finding the lady crone in the height Pueblo, Colorado. Right? Visualize, and I'm saying it now. And Fish, the crone is going to walk into your lap. You're not going to have to look. The more you look for him, the more you're not going to find it. The more you open yourself up, crone's going to walk into your life. I mean, I wasn't looking for the crone. She walked into my life. I was just opened up, instead of being frustrated and pissed off, blah, 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 because I was rejected in the theater and I went to this, you know, scholarly thing where everyone, just looked at me as like garbage. And the whole high holy was in, and what is she dressed in but garbage bags, right? With a little trolley, right? And she comes straight to me. So that's what's going to happen to you, Fish. Just open yourself up. Okay, everyone, visualize it. I'm saying it now. She's going to walk right into your everyday, whatever that is. If your supermarket, post office, at work, wherever, she's going to walk right in. Yes, I viewed horses and cows as smarter, bigger dogs. And I would talk to them that same way I talk to dogs, right? And I'd look, and it's all in your eye. They don't, when they hear a human voice, they hear, but they're really good. You go like this, they'll come to you. You go like this, they'll stop. You know, go like, for a dog, they'll sit down. Horses, cows, they don't sit down quite so much. But you go like this, cow will lie down, you know, and you just give them unconditional love. And if you've ever been on a farm, a milk farm with loads and loads of cows, not a meat farm, but a milk farm, everyone there loves their cows. Yeah, wah, 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 Charlie Brown, exactly. That's how dogs hear humans, like the teacher in Charlie Brown. Wah, 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 wah. Yeah. So, well, this is a good chat. Yep, just don't concentrate on it and she'll arrive. Soft tones, yes. Who loves you, baby? Oh, I love you. Yes, yes, yes. That's how you talk to them. But that's how you talk to everyone. When I worked in a hospital with people who were, you know, Alzheimer's and dementia, I would talk at certain points, not all the time. The other times I would just talk to them. So, like they were there, not like they were a rutabaga. But when they were upset, like, oh, come on, I love you. And they would respond like snap of the fingers. Well, as you can see, I don't really have a haircut. Being the kill for the rest of all that I have as myself. I'm going to have to read that one again. I have been concentrating lately on no having such a dense ego. Right. And I would call it an egoless ego because we're in our avatar. That is like one of the operating procedures of the avatar is the ego, right? So, but an egoless ego, we all got them. We just don't have to wear them on our sleeve. This other one, and being the kill for the rest of all that I have as a self. Well, come on, you still got to be as long as you got an avatar, as long as you're in a body, you have a self. The thing is to be your higher self, right? To move forward, to be your higher self. Right? It was electric blue. I only dyed my hair once. I was living in Sweden. We lived in this little town, Forshuga, between Stockholm and Gothenburg. And a friend of mine had a beautiful house and kids and, super bucolic. You think of the most bucolic thing, that was his house, right? And Sweden, we were in Sweden for a year because we could just go down to Stockholm, get on an airplane, go anywhere in the world for free, and have 2 weeks in a hotel and tours and food and everything. Because the government paid for it, and about a third of the population were too neurotic to take advantage. So anyway, I lived in this very, very, very bucolic place, and it was kind of nice, but ridiculously boring. And so my wife and I did ridiculous things to break the boredom. Instead of like rushing around when we were there, we tried to, just do things slow, wash the dishes and make the bread and, wash the clothes. And we did it for our friends, because they had, family, businesses, careers. So we were like, we took care of everything in this slow kind of way that they didn't even know us doing it. So anyway, one day we went down to the store and we're learning Swedish, and we're getting vegetables and bread and cheese and wine, and things are ridiculously expensive in Sweden because it pays for everything else, like the trips that we were taking. So it kind of worked out. So anyway, this guy goes on about, oh, I just got these new things in from India, spices. I don't know. And we're looking at them and smelling, and I'm tasting them, and it's like, oh, no, no, no. You don't sell this. This is not a spice. This is a dye. Henna. This is henna. And he goes, oh, I didn't know. He said they sent me all these. They said there were spices. Well, not this. Anyone tries to put this on their food, you're gonna not. They might die. Don't do it. It's a put it over here in the facial creams, right? So for that, he gave us a nice bag of this henna. So my wife and I, she wanted to have red hair, so we dyed our hair red, right? And she had a lot of hair, so she kind of stuck it up under a plastic bag, and I had a bit of. I had a lot more hair than I do now. Kind of all around went down to about here. Anyway, and it got any longer than this, my hair would just kind of knot up, right? And she loved brushing my hair because it was like, she had that little bit of make me suffer kind of thing. Anyway, and she probably could make a good dominatrix. Anyway, so we dye our hair together, and I put a plastic bag, and I fall asleep in a chair on the front lawn. And the sun kind of goes over a real long period of time, like from about 10 in the morning when we put the stuff on, all the way to around 8 o'clock. The sun was still beating. It wasn't until after 8 that the sun went past beating on me, right? So we wake up, and she goes, oh. So we realize we have, it's like caked on like concrete. So we go in the shower, take a shower. And so her hair is like fire engine red, and so is mine. But the plastic bag was pulled over my forehead. right? So my whole forehead, and I've always had a pretty tall forehead, was dyed fire engine red. And the drips came down my cheek to my chin. I didn't have a beard. And I'd had, and it looked like some motorcycle gang or, East Indian cult or something very strange. And it dyed my skin for about a month. And, so traveling the world looking like that, when we would go through customs, I remember we went into Spain and I had this, and the guy looked at me, goes, what? And I had to explain the whole story, right? And my wife, she took pictures of everything. She took pictures of it, right? And because she thought it was hilarious. I mean, she, realized that it did that. So I didn't see it because I couldn't see it, but she could. She started clipping away. Anyway, whenever we went to foreign countries and my head and face was still dyed, she would pull out the photo album and say, see, this is what happened. And they would look at it and look at me and laugh hilariously, go, you freaking moron. Go, yep, what can I say? And then the powers that be, the governmental folk in that little neighborhood would like, every time we would get stopped and they'd look at me, hey, just take a look at these. And we'd get off of everything. They would laugh so hard that whatever they thought we were doing to begin with, they just forgot about and let us go on our way. And that was the beauty of being with her. She could, I mean, we'd be driving around and she, hey, slow down, there's a cop around the corner. I mean, she by my reinforcement, this is great, you're great, this is, a gift, not a, you know, wow, down to your lower back. I mean, I tried it once. I had a girlfriend who was into hair, and it turned, she wanted to dread, and instead of dreading this way, it turned into one bundle of a two by four going out the side of my head. So that's kind of why I let this grow long and I let this always be short. Yep, gnarly dreads. So just tried that once. Kool-Aid to color hair. Ooh, nasal dreads. Yeah, I've done that before. That's what these are. These are nasal dreads. I've done that. When that whole thing was that way, that's what I did. Did a mohawk. John can look sweet anyway. He's got that in him. And John can be anything he wants. He could be whatever, but he gets in his own way. You know. Yep. A metal band member. Yep. I've done that too. Not played, but been the Smurf, Grandpa Smurf. I've been the Grandpa Smurf to five different bands. Like from once I became 50 until the last crew I was that for was the Rasta guys because it was very interesting because they were real Rastas. I mean, highly Selassie, the whole go on. So they could never get a gig. So I would go get the gigs, and I found a nice Jewish guy to be the money man, the manager, and he was the money manager of Bachman Turner Overdrive. I met him back in the day of the Bachman Turner Overdrive when they played at the Fillmore. One day, I was in the supermarket in Florida. What is it called? Publix, and I'm in my little golf cart of a shopping cart in Publix. I come around the corner, smash right into this guy. Luckily, I didn't run him over, but into his cart, and he kind of, oh. And I looked up at him and I said, Gary. And he goes, He looks at me because he was a really tall guy, Jewish boy from the Bronx, really curly, still had the curly hair, and he was a good 10 years older than me. So his hair was already kind of turning gray when I met him first. And he goes, "Oh, you're that guy." I said, "Yeah, I'm that guy." Ow. Anyway, so we started talking. We did our shopping. We went and had lunch in their little lunch thing there. And I told him what I was doing, and he goes, "I'm retired, but boy, I would love to do some more." I said, "Great, you're the manager." I said, "Aren't you?" He said, "No, no, I'm just a grandpa smear." So yes, but it was amazing how Florida was so racist because those guys couldn't get a gig when they tried to get one, but when Gary and I got them for him, we got them, and we get them in there, and they just play the music, and they love the music, but they didn't want to hear these guys. Use your head as a monolith prop. Oh, but it's a celebrity. Uh, yeah, fear is a hard thing to get out of. And that's another one. Again, I'm his friend. I'm not his like I've tried to get him to go, and that's kind of where he's got to go. And going to I used to be a shrink. Going to a shrink isn't, you're not sick. It's like, going to a doctor for athlete's foot. It's not a big deal. But a good one can truly help you. And so I try to help John by being his friend and living my life as an example. And it has had a positive effect. Right? I'm glad you got a good laugh. And that's what these chats are for, a good laugh. Again, I don't want to talk about those motifs, but they're your basic motifs, It's when, fear comes from being traumatized, right? And then you get stuck, you know? And our culture is based on that. We traumatize everyone. Television advertisements are traumatizations. All our culture is, our modern industrial material culture is all about because it all revolves around war and the profits of war. And so, you were either bombed and you watch your family die, or your dad dies in the bomber that dropped the bombs on those kids. I mean, that's it. And everyone is traumatized on some level. Now, my grandma, because, I grew up in my parents and my family, my dad bombed most of Europe, and in the worst of ways, in that he didn't even fly the airplane. He was the industrialist, not so much as the factory guy, but the organizer of the Air Force, sending the men, "Okay, boys, you're going to go to Schweitznutz," And then he had to, debrief them on the way back, and it was, so my dad was, woo-wee. And my mom, same thing. She was a nurse, ran hospitals, went through the depression of the depression, and also the Spanish. The thing that really affected my mom in a lot of ways was the Spanish flu. World War I killed 24 million people. Spanish flu killed 26 million people. World War I took 5 years to kill those 24 million people. Spanish flu killed those 26 million people in 7 months. That's it. And it burned itself out. And World War II killed anywhere between 60 and 100 million people. I'm not quite sure. So that is the cause. And so you also have to realize the karmic, what your last life was. Meaning, the more you can be awake at this life, the more you have the choice of what you want to do with your life when you die. If you're just then you're just going to come back on the roulette wheel of karma over and over and over. And unless you can free yourself, every turn of that wheel just digs you in deeper and deeper and deeper. So the trauma, and that's why, yeah, I got schooled as they shrink. I have a master's in social work. And, but, I practiced it as a shamanic, psychosocial, cultural, forensic, anthropologic alchemist and had great success. And, the places I worked loved me. But at a certain point, they said, Al, you're being too successful. You're bumping up against our profit model. We need to have the hooks on these folks for at least 10, 15, 20 years at $300 a week. And you're knocking them out of into a good healthy life within a month or two. No, no, no. So that is the problem. It's frustrated his life, in his opinion, is going nowhere fast because he feels he should be recognized by now as he is the most. Yeah, exactly. And the best way to be recognized is not to be recognized because, man, I've been around people. I've been around the spotlight, never stepped in because I watched everyone in the spotlight. I used to have breakfast with John Lennon at least once or twice a week because we both ate at the same, uh, diner. I lived just a couple blocks from where he lived in the Dakota, whatever the name of that place where he was living. And when he took 10 years to be a house father, right? And then he realized he had to step up to his spiritual debt and job, and he wrote the Double Fantasy album. He had about five other albums ready to go, and that's when they knocked him off because he wasn't going to be like, Paul McCartney, with wings. Well, the new aesthetic, we have to look at words, first of all, the words used, because the words used give power. Like in the book Dune, where their weapon was this little thing that they would scream into and blow stuff up. Well, that's kind of what we do. And so we are stuck in a vocabulary because back in the days before the building of the Tower of Babel, we were all telepathic. We didn't speak, we didn't talk. We just could read each other's minds. And this is what brought peace because we knew when people lied or cheat or stole or were angry or were violent because we could read their minds. And so instead of going at them with pitchforks, we went after them with love. And that's what gave our culture at that time that thing. Now, all of those mechanisms in our avatar still exist. It's just that we dim them down with all of the distraction of the material illusion. So, first we kind of have to start taking like what makes the meaning to life. That's one thing. It's like one of the first kind of things. We need to kind of go back. So if you're a scholar, or if you're a scientist, or if you're an engineer, if you're any of those things, what do you do first when you get an idea? Oh, how am I going to do this? You go back and you look to see what other people did in that same realm. So I would suggest you are the cadre, you are the chorus right now, the seven of you there. Start looking at everything. Go look at the Bauhaus. Um, Remember back we were talking that woman who made all this amazing art and never showed it until she died, and she wrote a book about aesthetics. Klimt, I think she's Dutch or Swedish. Klimt was her name, and now she's like, whoa, she's right up there with Vincent Van Gogh. And that's what these folks did. They kind of came from a point of view, and then they pushed past the box of that point of view. And that's what that for the new aesthetic, that's kind of what we have to do. And then we have to make a, a vehicle. Right now, Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob is the vehicle, right? And it's interesting because it's a whole new medium. This is a medium that's sucking people's brains and souls dry, and yet we are on it in a way that is not doing that. You know, we don't go at each other aggressively, competitively. We go with each other collectively and co-creative with love. That's what makes this different. So that's the foundation block: co-creation with love, and then we have to figure out everything else. So the meaning to this life with co-creation with love, right? So say we all. So will we all? Yep, you got it. Yep, get home safely. Language is the control mechanism, exactly. And then from that, all of these other control mechanisms like economics and religion and, schooling, spelling's a spell, you know? Etymology helps. That's why I'm constantly going, hey, you know, some putsy putz tried to troll us, a few days ago. And then he was trolling me on my Gmail. And I just kept laughing, saying, come on, all the words you're using are, dictionary, Webster's dictionary. And I said, well, no, you go look it up in the big book. There's a book. It's the oldest book in the Dark Ages, and it's like 11 feet long, and it's got some really interesting everything in it. I think it's, if you were to go Google it, I think it's called Satan's Book or the Devil's Book or something like that. But the Catholic Church owns it. Tell me like a flower coming up, you need. Will never fade away. Yep. Can I help you with that problem? Stick around, I say. Coming up. Yep. So say we all. That's all of us together. Yep, that's it. Helma auf Klimt. Yep. So you go look at people like that, like the Bauhaus. There's a whole bunch, the whole existential crew. The guy who wrote Steppenwolf, all those French existentialists. These are all, not to say, oh, we're going to do it like that, but it gives us a taste of them trying to get outside the box. Thomas Merton, go read him. James Joyce, the guy who wrote Huxley, the guy who wrote Moby Dick, Samuel Clemens. Boom. Yes, and the best person of Linda and Paul as a couple was Linda. You just could tell by her pictures. She was keeping him straight. She actually saved Paul. Yep. The devil's. Yep. That's it. Yeah. Yes, he wrote it in a way that was, it was 11 foot fucking long, and you open it up, it's like 6 feet wide. Yes, and he left no marks on it. He's got this bottle of ink, and he's scrolling away, and you read other books that were written like that, and there's fingerprints everywhere, and he didn't leave a mark. He was like floating over that book. Theosophy. Now, theosophy is a very interesting one because it's really old and really new. Something borrowed, something blue. Madame Blavatsky, she was a trip. And again, if you can read books like that, you know, Alice Bailey's books that are all, kind of, what do they call it when you're not writing, autonomic writing, you know, you have to read those books with a grain of salt. And that's just how Edgar Casey did his readings. He wasn't even there. Yep, Angel at my table. That's a good one. Okay, so we're getting towards 2 hours, and I think I will say I'll see. What do we? Let's spend the next 10 minutes or so thinking about what we want to talk about. Where's a pen? I write this stuff down. Here's a pen. What we want to talk about on the chat tonight at 7, right? And we need at least 8 people. That's like the breakthrough point, right? Like last night, we had about 2, and all I did was get a little testy. I said a lot of stuff, but it wasn't a conversation. It was like me talking to myself. Yes, most of you think that's how it is all the time anyway, but I still read everything you say and comment on it as we go along, and that's part of the conversation. Yep. So, yep. And so shall we all project loving thoughts towards John, because he is very susceptible. I mean, he can be like, and all I do is sit there and project love thoughts to him, and he calms down. So okay. So when we come back tonight at 7, let us have all written something down as words. I will plot something, and then I will pray on it before I open the channel and be there. Okay. Walk-ins. That's a very good one. I can talk about that. I have experienced that because I had this Catholic church training to be a monk, and then I had all this scholarly stuff, and then and all the monkey stuff I did, and all the rabbi stuff I did was all about the esoteric of those religions, right? And every religion, when I lived with my Shinto sensei in Putney, Vermont, I was the one interested in the esoteric and occultness of shamanism, the Shinto religion. Sweet dreams and ice cream. Okay. Are you going to bed, bud? Is that where you're heading for? Well, the born again evangelicals are the what do they call those guys? Hard ass Christians. They're the same thing as the Muslim guys. They believe in a dogmatic thing that doesn't even exist. We'll get astral on it. Yep. Evangel. I can't. I only have 4 teeth. Well, go get some sleep, buddy, and then have a great morning. And I think I'm going to cut out here. Otherwise, we'll just keep chatting. So you all have a beautiful wherever you are, morning, evening, afternoon, lunch, dinner. And I'll see you tonight at 7 p.m. I will walk in. So I will, work on bringing up stories of walk-ins because I have a couple of good ones. Okay. Spread the word. Let's get more people watching. Okay. Hit that like button. Be the cadre that you are. Sing that song. I love you all. And we'll get astral with it tonight. Okay? Okay. We'll get astral with the walk-in thing. And we'll start out with a couple of really good stories. Okie dokie.